In this lecture, we are going to discuss the CIA Triad, where CIA stands for Confidentiality, Integrity, and Availability. These are the pillars of information security. We will start by defining what information security is. We will do a quick compare and contrast with information security versus cybersecurity. We will then outline what the CIA Triad is and compare that with the DAD or DAD Triad. We will then define what a control is and conclude with types of controls. So what is information security? Information security is the protection of information's confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And when we get to looking at CIA in just a moment, we're going to unpack that a little bit more. What exactly does confidentiality mean? What does integrity mean? And what does availability mean? Before we do that, I just want to compare and contrast real quick information security or InfoSec with cybersecurity. So these are overlapping terms, but they mean slightly different things. Information security is an umbrella term that includes cybersecurity, and information security is concerned with the security of all information, including electronic, paper, and oral information. Cybersecurity, in contrast, is focused on digital or electronic information. Cybersecurity is concerned with the securing of digital networks and its associated physical infrastructure, as well as discrete IT systems. And so if you think about a library and the historical documents that a library or an archive may hold, then individuals concerned with information security are going to be concerned with securing that information. Cybersecurity, again, they're focused on the digital electronic side, on the networks and systems. Again, CIA stands for Confidentiality, Integrity, and Availability. When we talk about the confidentiality of a system or records, we mean that this data is accessed only by authorized personnel. With regards to integrity, we want to protect the data to make sure that it is accurate, complete, and tamper-proof. And finally, for availability, we want to ensure that the data is accessible when needed. And so, for example, if a hacker exfiltrates data, private data that perhaps belong to a credit card company, and they leak that data on the internet, that data is no longer confidential. The hacker has gained unauthorized access and has provided the whole public via the internet with unauthorized access as well. Let's think about another situation where Alice is sending a message to Bob via email. Well, when Alice sends her message, as that message is traversing the internet, it is intercepted by a hacker, it is altered by a hacker, and then it is sent on its merry way to Bob. Well, the message that Bob receives, because it's been tampered with, the integrity of that message has been compromised. And so this is a case where the integrity of that email has not been preserved. Finally, let's say hackers launch a DOS or denial of service attack on a hospital and shut down that hospital's information network. And so now when doctors or nurses need medical records on patients, they're unable to retrieve those records, again, because the network has been shut down. That data, that health data, is no longer available. And so this is an example where availability has been compromised. Now, the opposite of the CIA Triad is the DAD Triad. For the CIPM exam, you do not need to know the DAD Triad. I am providing you with this simply as some more context to help you better understand the CIA Triad. The DAD Triad is the opposite of the CIA Triad. The opposite of confidentiality is disclosure. Again, that's unauthorized access. The opposite of integrity is alteration, when data is unknowingly changed or tampered. And the opposite of availability is destruction, when data is lost. Now, a network can be shut down and the data is unavailable because there's no electricity. In that case, the data is just temporarily unavailable, not destroyed. But of course, if the data is destroyed, if the servers catch fire, for example, then it is destroyed and no longer available. The final concept for this lecture is control. And we went over this earlier when we were talking about risk management. Remember, risk is the potential for harm, and we mitigate risk by identifying a risk, selecting a control, and then implementing a control. And you'll remember from that discussion that a control is a measure used to mitigate or control risk. 3 flavors of controls are administrative, technical, and physical. And so in this case, controls are administrative, technical, or physical measures implemented to mitigate risk. You do need to know these 3 flavors of controls for the exam. Again, administrative, technical, and physical. And we're going to go over some examples here. Examples of administrative controls include policies, procedures, training, and signage. And so if I work in a hospital and I'm working with a lot of PHI, then it's really important that I receive training on the importance of proper handling of PHI. And so in this case, the training of employees on how to handle PHI is a type of administrative control. Technical controls, I think, are what folks generally think of when they're imagining the role of a cybersecurity professional or what a hacker is trying to tamper with in order to gain access to a system. Technical controls include firewall configuration, logs, access controls, and intrusion detection and intrusion prevention systems. And finally, physical controls are any controls that limit or control physical access to a facility. These include gates, fences, locks, security cameras, security guards, and guard dogs. In this lecture, we have provided a brief overview of the CIA Triad. You need to remember for the exam that information security is the protection of information's CIA, again, confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Remember that information security is the protection of all information, regardless of format, whereas cybersecurity is the protection of systems, networks, and the data that those systems and networks house. Again, CIA stands for confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And as a point of contrast, we looked at the DAD triad, disclosure, alteration, and destruction. Remember that a control is a measure implemented to mitigate risk. And 3 types of controls are administrative, technical, and physical.